Hey guys, and welcome to season 4, episode 4 of the MSC Performance Podcast. Today we have a special Q&A episode with myself, Coach Luke, and I'm joined by Coach Sonia Kuklova, who is now 25. So happy birthday to Sonia. Sonia, how are you?
Hi Luke, and hi everyone. Thanks for a nice warm welcome. I'm great. I'm feeling literally exactly the same like yesterday, which is phenomenal.
Tired, old,
No,
I'm ready for a rest.
I'm feeling really good.
But how was your birthday? People are asking, they want to know, what does Sonia do to celebrate her birthday? You went for a run, you went for a 4-hour training session, and then you went for a nice steak.
Okay, so yes, I've trained and I had red meat, as Mark would say, as Shark would do. Yeah. So yes, thanks for asking. It was very lovely, and thanks to everyone from MSC who was really nice, including yourself. You made my day very special.
Yeah. As deserved.
As deserved. Oh, thank you, Luke.
So yeah, today we have 4 questions from our Q&A that we released yesterday on Instagram. So the 4 questions are going to be: what should you be eating, or recommendations for a pre-workout meal? The second question is: what supplements do we both take, and what do we recommend people take? The third one is: what has been the most rewarding part of our training and coaching? And then the last question is: I've just started doing cardio and strength on the same day. Is this okay? And how should I go about setting it up?
Great questions.
Yeah, really good variety of questions. We're going to get stuck into the pre-workout meal because I think it is quite interesting, and we've got some good research on it, so it's exciting to get stuck in. As always, we're going to talk anecdotally first. So Sonia, what do you currently have for your pre-workout meal? And I guess if you wanted to talk about your preferences, if you have any differences depending on what kind of session you're doing, just tell us what you do.
So obviously I train quite often twice a day, which one of the sessions is conditioning and then strength, so that kind of correlates to the last question, which is good. I personally don't eat anything before I train first thing in the morning, before conditioning. If it's in the day, I have a big gap, which is at least 2 hours, maybe 3. I just
after a meal.
Yeah, I genuinely couldn't do it. I would be sick. I've never been sick, but I feel heavy. I don't feel good.
Slow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost. This really always surprised me. To be fair, when people tell me that they actually ate, I don't know, full meal before they came in. But I guess that's, as you said, like preference. I definitely fuel myself through the day for my session, which is later in the day, which is the strength session. I think I would be okay to do it like fasted, or if I wouldn't eat a couple of hours before, but I would feel definitely weak myself if I would be fasting all day.
So if you train first thing in the morning, you train quite famously at 5 a.m. Do you eat before 5, or do you just come in?
It's actually at 4:30.
Wow, I apologize. Do you have anything at 4, or you wake
Nothing,
up and just, so you are fasted when you do the morning session, but the second session, which is a bit more strength orientated, you've normally had a meal 3 hours before, but nothing actually like an hour or 2 beforehand.
No.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. And ultimately, what we're saying is it is going to be a preference on this thing, because one of the most famous powerlifters talks a lot about, he trains early, fasted, hasn't had a meal. And you'd think that anecdotally that is probably not the most optimal thing, but for yourself, you just don't feel good after you've had a meal. For this guy, he was saying that he also feels the same. He just feels alert, feels energetic in the morning, doesn't feel the need to have eaten before.
But the thing is that maybe a crucial thing is what you eat on the day before, or like basically what time was your last meal.
Absolutely. It's not about what you've eaten in the last 2 hours. It's about what you've probably eaten in the last 24 hours in terms of like recovering from your previous session for someone like yourself when you've got that 2 sessions a day, but also what have you eaten at the night before.
Exactly.
It's not about just the acute what I've eaten in the last couple of hours. It's about what you've eaten over the last 12 hours, 24 hours.
Yes. To be fair, I've noticed on myself that actually having like a good solid dinner really fuels me for the next day. So again, it was like a trial and error. I had a period when I was kind of like skipping dinners, on trying not to eat before bed, because I obviously go to bed quite early. But then if I try to train in the morning, I was really low energy. So when I actually have a good dinner, I have much more energy for the session, and it's just way better. But for me, it's the time before bed. So I kind of control that. I don't really eat before I go to bed because I just think that the body is just too full and can't rest, because obviously your body needs to process the food. You just obviously take an energy, it's like food's energy. So I feel like I don't really need it for the sleep.
Me and you are literally the complete opposite person. Yeah. So I always have something pre-session. I always eat 2 hours before training, then I have a little snack right before I train. And then also in terms of sleeping, I can't sleep if I'm slightly hungry. So I always eat at like an hour beforehand.
Wow.
If I don't eat beforehand, I start to feel hungry and I wake up in the middle of the night. So these are the individual differences, and there's no right or wrong. It's just what we prefer. I personally, I normally train around 7:30 on a weekday, and I normally have a dinner about 5, so 2.5 hours before, and then I have like a little snack which is very carbohydrate based, half an hour beforehand. You'll always see me finishing the barbell club with a handful of jelly beans, which is normally my go-to. So I prefer like a little carbohydrate snack. You prefer a nothing. So it's quite interesting. I'm looking at the research on what is good for pre-workout. There was something that was released last month, and it was looking at what pre-workout meals are the best, and it's based on, this is where the important point happen is, it's based on a moderate strength training session. So I think it was like 8 working sets of 6 to 12 repetitions, if I remember correctly. So it represents a good session that a lot of people would do. Not a ridiculously high volume session. I'm sure we would both do a little bit more, but it represents a moderate session for people to be doing. And they used a carbohydrate based meal that was purely liquid, and they used a carbohydrate meal that was a bit more what was the word, sloshy,
satiety, something like
well, it was designed to be a higher satiety meal, which means that they felt a little bit fuller after eating it. But in terms of macronutrients, it was exactly the same, like same amount of carbs, same amount of protein, but the performance and the amount of volume that they performed was higher in the group that had higher satiety levels. So before, we've looked at like water versus carbohydrates, water versus carbs versus fats, and this was the first one comparing carbohydrates versus carbohydrates, but one was designed to be a little bit more of a filling meal. It still doesn't sound nice, but it was slosh, but it's designed to be high satiety. So the idea is that they went, before they started training, they filled in like a Q&A, and it's like how they feel, how hungry did they feel, and the ones that reported high satiety performed more volume. And I think that's really interesting, because the sessions that most people are performing in the gym aren't going to have that high of a glycolytic demand. And if you look at the research again on like how much muscle glycogen depletion happens in a training session, I think overall for the muscle fibers, it's like 30%. And then for type 2 fibers, it's like 48%. So you're never really going to fully deplete your glycogen stores with a very moderate gym session. This changes when you're doing, I know you don't have a meal, but if you were doing like a tough hour or 2 hour cardio session or high volume session, then maybe towards the end, your depletion would be a little bit higher, and it would maybe start to be closer to where you've got to start to worry about it. And that's maybe where you'd consider having like an energy gel while you're training, or like some kind of higher sugar drink, perhaps.
Yeah, what I like about the study you mentioned is that it was almost based on like that hunger feeling as well. So for myself, I can say that if I'm doing a strength session and I do feel hunger, I think it already sets me mentally weaker, being weaker. So as you said, like I would probably have something, because I just would feel weak. So I think that's a big factor on it. And because obviously they had the same amount of calories, as you said, like same macros, but the hunger is the difference. Exactly.
Which is probably why when you're coming in at 4:30 and you're training and you're not feeling hungry because you've had a decent meal the night before, you're able to do a good amount of work. While if you started to have a smaller meal at night and you backlogged all your food, so you had a lot of calories in the morning, a lot of calories at lunch, a very small meal at dinner. Perhaps if you went in at 4:30 and you start to get a little bit hungry prior to breakfast, maybe that would start to have a detrimental effect on your training.
And afterwards, like a couple of hours later, I have big time hunger.
So when I think about my training, so I know that as a powerlifter, my glycogen isn't going to get depleted. However, I can make it fit with my calories to have a small amount of carbohydrates. Max always jokes because I weigh the jelly beans. So I know that it's exactly around 200 calories, pretty much exclusively from carbohydrates. And I know that that's not like helping me, keep fueled. It's not fueling the training sessions, but it's just fail safe. So like if there was any, like I said, the type 2 fibers, which are the ones you're going to be pretty much exclusively relying on for high power based movements and high strength based movements, they're getting depleted around like that 50% mark. It's just a fail safe to make sure that's not getting tipped any further. So I have it as a fail safe, but if it didn't fit my calories, or if it was in a big cut and I had to drop some body weight, I could easily drop that and probably still get the same session. I also have it to avoid feeling hungry during the training session, because I think about like some of my training sessions on a Friday when I start training around 4:30, and normally eat at like 6. So towards the tail end of the training session, I'm getting really hungry. And they're the sessions that are normally the weakest. And as soon as you start to feel hungry, I feel terrible. So I have it just to try and increase the chances of me not feeling hungry during the session, and as a fail safe.
I like it. And literally this basically sums up that one thing is having those sources kind of like secured and feeling not too full. Because it's same like if I have dinner and it's, let's say, low carb, I can tell next day that it was low carb. So I like this point that you said, that because basically you keeping yourself relatively not too full, but not
like
hungry.
200 calories of sweets is not going to make me feel stodgy. Not the same as having a roast dinner. And
this is where people should start thinking, or this is where you kind of thinking, what is it going to be? So it can have the same macros, it can, be the same calories, but it's different. So some people would prefer a shake, maybe like, smoothie type, but some people actually would like to feel something. So
I think especially for guys that are training straight from work, if you normally eat at like 6 but you're training at 5, there's that danger where you're starting to feel a little bit hungry and maybe session's going to suffer. So potentially then having some kind of like mid-afternoon or a couple hours before, like some kind of little snack that's going to help you avoid feeling hungry as you're doing the training session, is probably going to be a beneficial thing.
So it's actually really important, like considering what is the pre-workout meal, because obviously I don't know, like if you would have fish and chips, I'm not sure if you
well, you definitely wouldn't feel hungry. You might feel what you say stodgy, so probably not the most ideal. But it does seem that like this study is hinting that it doesn't particularly matter if it's carbohydrates or fats. I used to joke about Andy, who's one of the part owners of MSC. I used to joke that he brought in a bar of dairy milk once and asked me if I wanted some simple sugars. And at the time I laughed because it's not the best simple sugars source. But actually, if it helped him stay not hungry, maybe in hindsight, it is actually a good thing. So you see people eating like high carb meals prior to training. You see people eating some fats, some carbs, some protein. And I think as long as you're not feeling hungry, whichever meal you choose is going to be beneficial. And I think this advice changes if you're doing a very high volume training session. So if you're doing like a bodybuilding style training session with like high reps, high amount of sets, or you're doing something like you do where you're doing like a lung strength training session or weightlifting session and then doing some conditioning, and it's starting to get closer towards that 2-hour mark, that's where you might consider having some carbohydrate pre-workout. But it is an individual thing, and it's something that you don't want to all of a sudden go from eating no pre-workout meal to having a massive amount of carbs, because people start to feel either stodgy or they feel like they have a little bit of a crash. But just slowly starting to integrate some kind of pre-workout meals here, it affects your training. Maybe have a little snack or a shake on the side that you can just take during the training session. So like more intra workout, maybe than pre would help.
And then obviously, like as we're saying, like, potentially having carbohydrates, like quick sugar. I just would like to mention that I think it really depends as well how efficient are you in kind of like utilizing it. Like can you, when let's say powerlifters are often with these jelly beans and gummy bears, do you think they actually like can get that source that quickly?
I don't know the answers to that. I'm not, I'd have to look.
But
I do think that it's just a bit of a meme. The power, like I said, because the glycogen depletion that happens during the training session is probably at max 50%. There is no danger of doing that. I think it's just a little bit of a meme, and a lot of powerlifters don't need to be eating as many gummies as they do. But if they have a handful and they enjoy doing it, and it fits their overall nutritional goals, it works as a fail safe. So as anything, you can take it too far. I think having a handful of sweets before your training or during your training is absolutely fine. If you start eating, fucking 1,000 calories of gummies, it's not going to fit, and it's not going to be, it goes past the point of being beneficial, and it goes too far the other way. So I don't think it's necessary, but I don't think it's a bad thing to have a little bit. But as always, you can take things a little bit too far.
Yeah, I think like, you got to think whether you using that pre-workout meal as that performance enhancement, or basically making you fueled for the session and then recover well as well. So yeah, not necessarily I would say that there is a meal which is going to make you perform better. I mean, like if you have, caffeine or energy drink, like you probably will get the energy out of that. And obviously it does what it's supposed to be if you're using it well. But I think that it's all based around the bigger picture of your training. So like you can't expect that you're gonna have a pre-workout and suddenly your workout's gonna just be better.
Yeah, it's not a difference maker. It's not a difference maker at all.
Yeah, so same like with foods. So if someone is asking for like a great pre-workout meal which is gonna make you live better, I don't think
there's ways that you can optimize it, but it's like a 3% thing rather than a 50% thing.
Which is small, but some people could get. But
yeah, people are trying to optimize. If people are trying to optimize the training, then these are the smaller things that you start to look at.
Yeah.
But from the research and from our kind of belief, it's that it can be kind of anything that, as long as it's a little bit more filling and it's not making you feel hungry during the training session, and you can kind of lean towards what you prefer. So if you prefer having carbs, great. If you like having some fats in there, great. Just a little bit of trial and error, but it seems that it's about just feeling full rather than having carbs for the sake of carbs. So yeah, if you're feeling like you're getting hungry during the session, maybe try having some kind of pre-workout meal, and that could have a positive effect. If you're doing a higher volume session, then perhaps look to having some carbohydrates and integrating that slowly. But like Sonia said, there's other things that you need to try and hit before you start looking at these smaller things. Like make sure your overall nutrition, like your protein in particular, is tailored towards your goal. Make sure your sleep and your recovery is good, and then you can start to look at like meal timing and stuff like that, which then will start to
which is a bigger picture. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that wraps it up nicely.
Right.
Let's move on to supplements. So what supplements do we take and what do we recommend? Again, we do very different sports. You do lots of high volume training, so your supplements might look different, or your recommendations might look different to mine. Yeah, do you want to kick us off?
I think I'll start because I'm gonna be honest, I don't really supplement that much. I think my very first one, which I consider being my top supplement, is supplementing my diet with protein powder. So I personally use whey protein powder, and the reason is because I just don't have chance to eat that many meals that I would hit my protein target. Which I think is it could be quite tough. So I really like having a protein shake. It's just a quick solution. Kind of fills you up through the day as well. I personally also take fish oil because I don't feel like I eat enough fish in my diet. I'm just like a simple chicken and meat girl. So
in terms of like fatty acids, you don't eat it with
so I mean, like I've back in uni and here and there, like I've read things on it, and obviously you need to have the balance of those amino acids with the other amino acids. And I don't know, I haven't done any tests on myself, haven't had it tested, so I'm not sure what my levels are, but I think that for general health you should be eating some sort of fish. Obviously, like avocados and olive oils and other types of oils, but I think like my diet is pretty balanced, but I still feel like this is something I just want to get in, and I genuinely feel a bit better. Also, I think that it's really good for like bone density health, so joints. I think that's like the main one for myself.
Yeah. I like to think of fish oil similar to when we talk about like when I have the jelly beans, and it's like it's a no risk potential reward thing. Like exactly. The fish oils might have no benefit, or it might have a very small benefit, but there's no negative side to you taking it, apart from you paying for it, which is very inexpensive.
Unless you would, let's say, be consuming already of those fats in your diet, and then you're taking maybe too much. But
even then, like, there's no real risk with that.
No, really, probably, yeah.
Well, I don't know too many people that suffer from eating too many essential fatty acids.
Yeah, I mean, but some people might be on these high fat diets, and they would be eating loads of nuts, loads of fish, or I don't know. I mean, you're probably right, but obviously everything too much is not good, is it?
So for 90% of people, there's no risk. For the people that eat a lot of nuts and fish, which I've never met, but Sonia knows lots. So but yeah, no, that's interesting. So yeah, myself, I Also take protein. You have your overall protein target, which personally is between 1.8 to 2.2 grams per kilo. So it's about 170 grams of protein a day. Trying to break it into like 4 or 5 different portions. So if you have 5, it's about 35 grams a meal. And it's super easy then just have one or two of them servings from whey protein. So I'll often have whey protein at breakfast if I'm having oats, so I'll have it as a post-workout shake. And that's easy then, 2 of the portions for the day. Then you've only got to get 3 portions from actual food, and it becomes super easy. So yeah, that's what I try and do with there. I also use a carbohydrate powder for the same reason. It's just a super easy, convenient shake post-workout. I also take creatine, and I also, I don't know if I class it as a supplement, but caffeine. These are the most researched. These are the ones that actual have evidence to a performance benefit. Creatine is super cheap, has a very positive effect on like power output, force output, and I think that, again, no risk to creatine. There also seems like some good research coming out on like neurological function of taking creatine, so it could be really good for cognitive health as well as like sporting performance. And it's like £4 for like 500 grams. And you only need to take 3 grams.
I also always thought that I would gain from that creatine.
Gain what?
Weight.
But it's just to keep water weight, isn't it? So then, I take creatine, but if I'm a little bit over weight category, I'll try not to come off it. But if I have to come off it a couple of weeks beforehand, I will do so. Because I'm not sure how much creatine would help like 1 rep max stuff compared to helping like maintain the creatine phosphate stores for like 10-second bursts of effort.
I like the neurological side. I think that's going to be probably a good research.
There is like, loads of research on it now in terms of like long-term health and keeping creatine in. And it's super it's super cheap as well. So like there's no reason why you can't take it. My brother used to take it and got like an upset stomach. So, there can be, there's loads of different types of creatine, but creatine monohydrate is the most researched and it is the cheapest. And I think all the other ones are just like, again, like an extra 1%.
I think it's probably similar like to protein, like different types, and people are suitable to different stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you take creatine monohydrate, which is the cheapest, the most research, like you're not going to go wrong with that. But then if you want to go for like, there are different types which apparently absorb faster. But then if you look at like the mechanisms of how creatine works, it's not like you don't take your creatine pre-workout to have an effect there and then. It's more about saturating the stores. That's why people do the loading phase. I personally don't do a loading phase. I don't recommend a loading phase for people unless it was like, I need to have my creatine stores ready for 7 days time. I'd rather just take 3 grams a day for a few weeks. And after I think 3 or 4 weeks, it's normally the stores are saturated and you're ready to get the benefit. But if you're like, well, I've got a big training session in a week and I've completely forgot to take my creatine and I need to make sure my stores are ready, then maybe do the loading phase. But I don't think you need to. And a lot of people get like upset stomach. It also then obviously you run out of it faster. So I don't think you need to do a loading phase. As long as you plan your training accordingly, you'll get the benefit from it in like 3 to 4 weeks of saturating the stores. And it's super cheap and it has a real positive impact on force and power production. Personally, I don't feel much different, but again, there's no risk to it. I think a very, very small reward. And I do feel better for taking it. And then we know caffeine as well is a massive one.
I was going to
as we drink our coffees now.
What about you and pre-workouts? Why do you prefer caffeine, like a coffee? Is it personal preference?
I think a lot of it is like the times that I train at 7:30 at night. I think like the benefit of having a pre-workout compared to having good sleep quality, having a pre-workout that late is maybe not that beneficial. I sometimes have like a pre-workout or a coffee or like an energy drink if I've got a big session. Like tonight I've got a fairly big session, I'll probably have a Monster, sacrifice that little bit of extra quality of sleep maybe to have a good session in. But yeah, like caffeine pre-workout we know is like increases alertness, increases perceived energy levels. So I think like in terms of staying focused, taking caffeine pre-workout, again, super cheap, lots of research behind it.
Loads it is.
Creatine and caffeine are the big two.
Then again, if we're just about talking about like personal preference, as you said, like trying to get the coffee earlier in the day, throughout the day, and then I don't really feel like I need to have it before the session because I kind of spread it through the day. I'm being more cautious when is my last like high caffeine, or if I have an energy drink. So yeah, that's a smart choice as well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the sleep, but if, yeah, as you said, like if you want to have a really good session, you might take that hit on the one night. But
yeah, because then my next training session is Friday. I'll have a good sleep on
Yeah.
Thursday night regardless. I'd obviously rather have a good sleep, but maybe I'll feel a bit more focused and alert if I have one.
yeah,
The last one I recommend is beta-alanine for people that do like high volume sessions or like doing like endurance based work. It acts as a little bit of a buffer and can stop like the fatigue creeping in and can stop kind of that that initial fatigue that you get from doing high rep sets where you get a buildup of lactic acid. Can act as a bit of a buffer for there and help you get more reps and more volume in. And that's, again, research and shows good benefit, but it's after like 20 seconds of work, which a lot of like powerlifters like myself don't particularly work for 20 seconds.
Do you think I should consider getting it?
Yeah. If you're doing like high volume sets, I'm not sure about doing like aerobic based work, but whenever there's a buildup of lactic acid, it can help buffer there and get a little bit more work and increase the amount of time it takes for you to get to that initial fatigue. So if you're doing sets of like 8 to 12 reps and you're working hard and you're getting that lactic acid buildup, which is what stops you being able to continue to produce the amount of force, then yeah, absolutely, I would take some beta-alanine. And it's in a lot of pre-workouts as well. So
yeah, I think like it's really interesting. I just always felt that like you should get the fundamental base from your diet, and then if you're lacking something, search.
But the supplements we've recommended are not like you should be taking this like Chinese herb supplement. The very, very fundamentals. You can get creatine. It's in a lot of red meat. It's naturally in the body anyway. It's just about topping it up. Caffeine is a very cheap supplement that could just increase alertness. And beta-alanine is just the one extra supplement I'd recommend for like if you wanted to act as a bit of a buffer, just to get a bit more volume out of your harder volume sessions. But outside of that, like you said, you want to, again, make sure everything else is on point. The supplements is the last 5-10% of what you should be looking at, your overarching nutritional concept. If your diet's shit and you're taking a pre-workout beforehand, it's not.
Often we get some people like who don't really train or kind of want to get into training coming up with the question of supplements, which is literally the last thing you should worry about just yet. Like you need to get you sorted and routine, training and a routine sorted before you even think about this. Because as you said, like it probably adds up 5 to 10%, which or maybe even more. Which
probably less.
Probably. But I think it's interesting if you have everything kind of nicely set.
If you're trying to optimize your training at the last couple of percent out of it.
I think it's cool. Yeah, it's actually really interesting.
Yeah. So caffeine, creatine, whey protein if you're looking to get your protein in, and potentially beta-alanine if you're doing higher volume work or anything where there's a lactic acid buildup. Just helps as a buffer to get some more volume.
And harmless fish oil.
And fish oils, I beg your pardon. And fish, apart from if you're eating exclusively fish and nuts, which all of Sonia's friends do apparently. So there you go. Any other supplements, or you think that wraps it up nicely?
That wraps it up.
Decent. So on to Barney's question. What is the most rewarding thing? I presume you meant coaching. I don't know if you meant training or coaching. We can potentially add both.
Yeah.
So
I'll start if you don't mind.
You've done the other two first, mate. So absolutely, you crack on. I'll interview you.
I think I'll start with the coaching one. Like the most rewarding thing for me is to see someone who's been working consistently and you see how far they came from that starting point, whether it's my personal clients or like people in a group here, when you actually have the chance to see that journey like from point one, and how much they've changed, and it's just so rewarding when you know that like I've taught you how to lift, it's like you were there with them. And I think this is for me the rewarding part. So obviously, when you're taking someone for a competition, it's amazing feeling when they win or when they do well, because obviously you did all the preparation for it. That's a big reward as well. But from my latest experience, it's definitely seeing after a long time, if you've been working with someone for a year or even more, like you've got long-term clients, which I think that's really rewarding in the bigger picture. It's like I actually changed someone's life. People often tell me about like, oh, you motivated me doing this, doing that, and it just really often gets into my head that that's actually really good.
Yeah.
So like you changing someone's life or making someone's life better, and I think that's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I have too. I think same as you. Like there was a time where like I was, I had a couple of people that like won the British podium at British, and then I remember like one client like lifting something that like in the grand scheme of it was not going to like stop people and staring at in the gym and thinking, wow, that was an amazing lift. But for that person, it was a really big achievement at the time. It was a nice little PB, and how happy it made them. And I remember thinking at the time that felt better to me than when someone won the British. So like tell me what you've just said, like actually helping people that like might not be the most athletic or not going to go win the world championships, but they enjoy training and they get so much out of it, and it just gives them an extra like something that helps them feel fulfilled in life. Like they might have good jobs still, but just this extra bit of lifting means so much to them. And then when they get a good a little PB in, and it makes them super happy, it feels great. I also think like just the effect it can have on people's lives outside of the gym. Like thinking of someone like Naz, when she started at MSC, like she's super shy, hiding in the corner doing like calf work, and then we've been PT now for like 5 years, and she's one of the main members of MSC. Like everyone knows her. She talks to everyone. She's got a good friendship group, and just outside of life now, way more confident. Even though I've got this like super fulfilling life of like a high up job. Just feels really confident now. It's helped her with the job, I think, in terms of like the actual confidence and the ability to stand up for herself. And I think helping people outside of the gym via the gym is a fantastic thing.
As you said, like via the gym, basically making them comfortable and confident in a weight room makes them different people outside the gym. And that's really good. It is. As you said, like so many people come to a gym shy, and you build it with them, and that's a good feeling.
The other one for me with the gym is in 2019 at the Junior British. We had I had two people that came first and third in the 66 class, and then someone that came second in the 74 straight after. So I had a 1, 2, 3 out of 2 flights.
That's big.
That was lovely. I loved that. That was a great day. We all had the old Rogers finger pose. It was a pretty cool day. So like stuff like that, like that's the two ends of the spectrum, is helping people that aren't massively into the gym, feel empowered, feel confident in and outside the gym, and then also helping people that are very good achieve what they want to achieve. They're the two ends of the spectrum for myself, and they're both super rewarding. What about like your actual lifting or your actual whatever
training? I think obviously with age, getting old,
25, it's older.
I think you go through different phases, and like you learn with your own training. Like obviously we coach, but I think like you doing your own training, you learn a lot, which I think you apply in your coaching as well. And obviously I consider my background being weightlifting, and it's probably my favorite thing to train. But I didn't really pursue it as you did. Like I don't really feel it just everyone's kind of pushing me into it, but my gut is just not really that driven for the competition. I don't know whether it's because I just didn't really fall for it so much, or I just focus maybe on the coaching side a little more. I really don't know, but I think like right now where I am with training, I just feel really, really good about knowing how to train. Being smart, obviously my last year injury taught me a big lesson, and I don't know, I just this old saying, like it's a bit of a cliche, like listen to your body, but I think that's such a big thing when you learn how to use it, how to adapt, and like keeping sleep on point, nutrition on point. It really does the magic. I mean, I just feel the best I've ever felt. I think I said it before, I think, but I think that's rewarding for me, that I've practiced so many things on myself, and I kind of found that sweet spot. Makes sense.
Makes sense. I guess for myself, probably either getting to Worlds after years of trying to get there was cool, even though it didn't go well. Like to actually finally do that and compete at Worlds, which was a massive goal. To do that was probably the best thing. That or winning the British, because that was super close and that was like a really good battle. Between those two is definitely the one. I would probably say the British, because the actual experience and getting to enjoy it with, well, my friends came to Sweden as well, but like there was loads of people at the British, and like the crowd like was fairly quiet, but the crowd supporting me was really loud. So then getting to experience that and have everyone there that supported me for years, and then realise that moment was pretty cool. So I reckon it was, probably winning the British was my most rewarding as a lifter. So not surprised there. No surprise. Everyone knew I was going to say that. Decent. And then I guess the final question then. So someone says, I've just started doing cardio and strength. As a background, they're a rugby player. So they're doing, Tuesday morning, then doing strength training session, and then Tuesday night they're doing rugby training, Tuesday and Thursday. What would we recommend in terms of like, well, is that okay in terms of their overall gains? And is there anything that we would recommend they do in terms of trying to maximize the return on that?
I think in terms of doing both is definitely a good thing to do. If you play it smart and you kind of get a good gap in between, there shouldn't be an issue with it. Again, if you kind of spread it around evenly or like equally, and maybe being smart whether you're gonna do uppers, lowers, you can play with these splits, but that's obviously a bit more in depth. I think in general you won't be ruining your training or gains with doing both, but again you need to kind of prepare your body for doing so obviously one wouldn't sacrifice the other. So let's say you might have a really good session in the morning, but you actually will be really weak in the evening, so then you need to know what's your priority. So obviously you should use the strength session to enhance your performance on the pitch if it's a rugby background.
I think the key to that is just avoiding these stupidly high volume sessions and just making sure that you're not doing a training session and then you come down the evening feeling super high fatigue. So I think even though you class it as a high day because it's 2 sessions, it's a super tough day, I would just be mindful of not going super high volume with like the lower body work in particular. And then I think in between those as well is just making sure that like you're refueled, ready for the next session. So we talked about that 50% depletion. If you're coming into your rugby session and you haven't restored the glycogen, you haven't eaten properly, you're coming into that session and you are at risk then of that having a detrimental effect on the rugby session, which is going to be a highly glycotic activity. So I think just making sure that you've eaten enough carbohydrates, you've doing what you can in terms of staying hydrated and fueled for that session is massive, and then just avoiding a ridiculous amount of volume is the main
through
thing.
The week,
people start doing 2 sessions a week and they just try and do their normal training session and the rugby in one big day.
It needs to
without the extra recovery. I always think that with volume, like it's diminished returns. So if you go from like doing 3 sets of 5 to 4 sets of 5, you might get a little benefit, but it's not as big as going from 2 sets to 3 sets and going from 1 to 2. Every time you add a set, you might get a little benefit, but the return is smaller than the previous one. So 2 5s to 3 5s, good return. 4 5s, smaller return. 5 5s. Eventually, like 8 5s might be beneficial, but it's a very small return. So like, I would stick to doing like 2 sets, 3 sets. First week, I did 2 sets. See how you feel in the training session. So you might do 2 sets of 5 on squat. Feel like you've got lots more to do, but fantastic. You've got a good return on your strength training. Do your rugby session. If you feel fantastic, after a couple of weeks, you could potentially add a third set, which I don't think is out the realms of realistic. Make sure you're recovering, you're eating, etc. Come into your rugby session, see what your performance is like. I probably wouldn't go any more than 3 or 4 sets personally for each exercise, but just gradually building up that volume and making sure you're not going in at like this massive, unrecoverable amount of work.
Again, it would take time to probably try, because again, one thing doesn't suit everyone, isn't it? Like, let's say we know that Mark does his high days, but I'm sure that if he would feel over a longer period of time that I am really tired on the Tuesday night, he would do some sort of adaptation.
He needs to make sure that on that Tuesday night he's playing good to then get a game on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And if he went in after not playing, he's only just gone back to rugby training, I guess. If he's still trying to do like 5 sets of 5, let's say, on trap bar, and then he's feeling super fatigued, it's not going to be to his overall goal of being the best rugby player. That's not going to be beneficial.
It's the trap bar.
If you dropped it down to 2 sets, felt explosive, felt powerful, felt recovered coming into the night, had a really good session, that's going to be more of a benefit. And then he might add another set, like we said. So you can absolutely do them together. It's just making sure that in between the sessions, you're doing everything you can to maximize the latter session.
That's a big key, like fueling up, recovering. That will play a major role as well. Exactly.
We know that in an ideal world that like if you're doing doubles, you would do the priority session first. But obviously with rugby training that you haven't got that benefit. You have to, it is what it is, that's the schedule. So exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's just making sure that at the Wednesday, you're not doing anything stupid. You're not going for a 20-mile run and you're not doing another high volume session. If you're having a high day on a Tuesday and a Thursday, you want to be having a low day on a Wednesday, which is like a light, low volume upper body session, or potentially like some active recovery work, or like low level cardio as more recovery based would probably be beneficial. You want to avoid turning every single day into a high day. You want to have your low day if you're doing sandwich in between two high days. You want to make sure that you are trying to optimize your recovery, ready to do another high day.
Yeah. I would maybe touch just quickly on obviously our members. Many of them do a barbell, Big Mel. Many of them do barbell in the morning and Metcon at night, which again, obviously they question whether, it can kind of impact them.
I'm going to stop you here because Ada did double yesterday and she did a bodyweight squat and fell over. So I'm not sure if it's if she's doing too much volume. No, I'm joking, but she did fall over doing the bodyweight squat.
I mean, again, many ask if it's okay to do. I personally always say that like you got to look at your day and also the kind of part of the plan you're currently at. So, if we're not maxing out, if they're not maxing out, I think if most of them have sedentary job, and basically if you do 45 minutes of Metcon in the morning and then sit 8 hours, I think it's completely fine to do something in the evening. It's going to be actually better.
I think, like you said, like if they were saying, I want to be the strongest lifter ever, nothing else matters to me, then you would say, I probably wouldn't do Metcon. Yeah. And if you said, I want to be the best at Metcon in the world, I'd probably say, I wouldn't do that much barbell club.
Exactly.
I'd probably just do a little bit of barbelling.
You couldn't know.
But doing them both together, you want to be good at them. You can absolutely do them both together.
Yeah. Because let's say, as you mentioned, Mel, she always looks up to Elise as like being a great lifter, which she is a great lifter. But I always say to Mel that that's something she specializes in that. Exactly.
If her and Mal did like an all-round fitness test, it might be a very different picture. But if you did a strength test, Elise would win.
Exactly.
Mal's good at a lot of different powerful attributes.
You got to look at that, obviously focus on yourself, and you got to look at that picture that you kind of trying to do both, as you said, like you want to be good at both.
The other example of that would be like you and Jazz.
Exactly.
Jazz, you both do weightlifting, but Jazz is probably the better weightlifter.
Yes.
But then if you also did a conditioning test, Jazz would be fucked.
Exactly.
Because all he does is weightlifting.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you
want to be good at something really good.
If you want to optimize your weightlifting or powerlifting, you do just powerlifting. If you want to be good, well-rounded, which most people probably should have a good base of both, you would do both. There you go. That's a good little ending there. So thank you guys for listening. We will do another Q&A next month. So if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, you can drop us a DM through Instagram. And if you have anything else that you wanted to ask us about what we've mentioned today, if you had any other follow-up questions, please let us know. But other than that, we will see you next week. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.